For those of you who followed me on my journey over the last several years, you know I've got a variety of price points, and I've really furthered what I like, how I hear, and I don't want to say my snobbiness, but my ability to dissect sound and gear. And today's an interesting video because I've got over there a $30,000 Airy Surat integrated. I had a $30,000 Viva integrated here, you know, that I reviewed. And today we're talking about the Qualiton. Now they're no longer called Audio Hungry and Qualiton. It's just Qualiton, so it's a little bit easier for the name. They're A35 integrated. And that comes in at about $5,000, $5,500 US dollars. So now that I've been exposed to much more expensive stuff, how does something in the $5,000 or $5,500 range hold up? Can I still enjoy it? Let me cut to the chase. Yes. Absolutely yes. Guys, welcome to another episode of the Greek Audio Geek. I am Michael. I am Greek. Have no fear, the Greek is here. The shirt my Mrs. Greek got me. And I am clearly an audio geek. I am surrounded by tube amps. We've got a Bernoco 300B. We've got an Airy Surat Genesis integrated 845. We've got a Finale Trialed Labs 300B burning in. We've got an Alnick 300B burning in. We've got, still got neck issues. We've got a Canon Jazz 100. We've got a BAT VK80i integrated. We've got behind me the Tektron, which plays 45 and 2A3 tubes. And off to my right today, we are talking about the Qualiton. Again, no longer Audio Hungry and Qualiton, just the Qualiton A35 integrated. And I really like this amp. And it's interesting, I talked in the opening about what happens, because I was really nervous about this, guys. When you start getting exposed to much more expensive gear, can you still enjoy lesser expensive gear? And I would argue that unless you are an audiophile snob, and I want to say for those of you following on my Facebook page, I made a declaration last week and I stand by this. I am no longer an audiophile. I am a tubephile. Okay, so for me, it's about the love and the passion of tubes and that journey. But to answer the question that I decided to ask myself with this video to make it interesting, even though it's pointless, yes, absolutely so. You can easily have amplifiers that are a lot less money, that are not 5, 6, 7, 8 digits in cost, and absolutely love the music and absolutely get great sound. Are there going to be differences in the sound? 100%. Is there going to be differences in maybe the size of the chassis and the robustness of the chassis? Absolutely. But I'll tell you what, at $5,500, this A35 is built like a tank. Comes in at about 40 pounds. Now it's not a full-size chassis, so it's really dense and robust. It's got excellent quality feel to it. The buttons here, this is the switch between the inputs. And here's the interesting thing. I have the website up here. And you know that I'm really passionate about amps that are either hand-built in the USA or Europe. Those are my really where I want to focus on. They talk about their custom output transformers. They talk about the custom power transformer and the automatic bias system. What's great about an automatic bias system, some of the gear I have here, such as the Airy Surat, have a manual bias. And the manual bias allows you to adjust the tubes. The advantage to that is that you can change tubes or you can tweak it to get the sound that you like and really dial it in. The disadvantage to that is that some people don't want that connection with the gear. They just want to plug, play, turn it on, and that's totally cool. There's no right or wrong answer. The BAT VK80i I have here under my left side is a perfect example of, so long as the green LEDs next to each tube is good, the amp's good. The tube is good. Let's try that again. So long as the LED next to each power tube is green, you know they are working fine. If not, then you know you've got a problem with that tube. There's a lot to be said for that. Just turn it on and enjoy. And what I like about the Qualiton is not only are they doing things a little bit differently, okay, they're not using a typical 6L6. They are using a 7581A tube, which is, think of it as a 6L6 family tube on steroids. And if you Google and say the difference between 7581A and 6L6, you will see that there's a lot of people who have 6L6 tube amps who have upgraded to that 7581A tube, and they love the sound. It's a little bit more powerful. It's a little bit more dynamic. And I will tell you that this amp had all of that. What's interesting about this amp for me is that it also allows me to try something different. And that something different is new old stock 807 tubes. Now, 807 tubes are a little bit different. They are going to require an adapter. I did buy an adapter, but this is a brown-based Sylvania tube. You see, it's got the little thing on the top. And I'm going to be doing more videos of not only trying the 807, but also trying the additional, changing out the additional tubes in the front for trying them with new old stock and trying different brands and seeing how that affects the sound. So what we're looking at here for specs, right now it's putting out 2 channels, 35 watts into either 4 or 8 ohms. It's got, I want to go back down here to the tube complement. Okay, guys, forgive me. You would think I would know the tube complement, but I am literally surrounded by dozens of tubes here, and sometimes I forget which goes with which. It has 2 12AX7s, 2 6922s, and then the 4 7581As. I have got a plethora. Yes, I actually used the plethora in a hi-fi video. I've got a plethora of 12AX7 tubes I'm going to try. Some of the ones I like a lot, like the Mazda. Oh, I love the French Mazda and Holland-made tubes. So we're going to try the 12AX7s on that. I'm a little bit less on the 6922s that I have for NOS, but we're going to try that as well. If that follows through in every other amp that I've done, it is going to offer a significant change in sound. But you don't need to do that. And this is what I was really struck with this amplifier. The first song I always play, always, no matter what year I am reviewing, is Fly Me to the Moon with Frank Sinatra and Count Basie. That song has got so much packed into it. You've got the little brush hitting on the drum. You've got the rim shots. You've got the dynamics of when he's singing, and then the orchestra kicks in, and it goes from like 0 to 100. And it's really interesting to notice the difference in terms of the dynamics of, can your amp keep up with it? Can your speakers keep up with it? Different cables, like I'm running stealth cables. Different cables, what's the tone and texture of Frank's voice? Different tubes and bias settings. Can you really hear the growl in his voice, or is he a little bit more laid back and boring? Like, does he sound like Frank's on his game, or is Frank a little bit sleepy? That song, and I'll list to my Qobuz playlist down below so you can check out the songs that I use routinely, is an incredibly telling song. And here's one of the things that I noticed about the Qualiton, which is, I thought, impressive. When they start to kick in on the right channel, and you can start to hear the rim shots on the drum, and the trumpet is just playing just a little bit. In many amplifiers, when they have a smoother sound, I like a smooth sound. When they have a smoother sound, you lose some of that information. You lose that sound and that clarity. With the Qualiton, it was there very clear. Now, I want to be careful because I typically get nervous when somebody says something sounds really clear or something has detail. I don't like using those words because, to me, that means analytical, that means too bright, that means you've lost the magic and essence of the music. So I mean this in a complimentary way of the information is there. It's very transparent in the terms of you can hear it, it's there, but it still has a very smooth presentation overall. And he's not tilting up the highs in the design of this amp to give you that information. This was a smooth character. This is the type of amp where when I come home, you want to kick back, you want to put on some jazz, you want to put on some Etta or some Louis Armstrong, I don't drink whiskey, I drink Mystica, which is Greek, and I drink vodka. maybe have a glass of that with you. This is going to bring you that enjoyment of that music, of a smooth sound with all the information that you want. I do believe that, as in every amp I've gone through here, that when you, sorry guys, that wince was not about the amp, it was about my neck, that every amp here, when you start changing out the preamp section tubes and things like that, you are going to get a noticeable sound. So I am very excited to see what does that do for this amp. Right now, as this amp stands, ready to go out of the box, you'll be very happy with it. It offers a nice depth and width to it. It is not one of those amplifiers that is larger than life and maybe exaggerated. There's the right amount of depth. There's the right amount of width. It never ran out of power in terms of when I wanted to play vocal trance on it. It never started to go into the clipping or anything like that. Now I am running Toby and horn speakers. I can feel the heat coming off these as the Alnick is burning in. I'm running the Toby and 12 FH speakers, which are 97, 98 dB efficiency. So it works well with these lower power amps. But I never got anywhere near, I don't think I got past 9 o'clock on the volume. It just had plenty of power. Now, compared to some other amps, some of the other amps seem to have and I don't know if it's exaggerated, I don't know if it's legit, they seem to have on some of the songs a wider swing in dynamics. That is not necessarily bad or good. That's just a flavor. That's just the offering of not only the amp, but the tubes. I'm willing to bet when I change out those preamp tubes, those 12AX7s, and I put in some Mazdas, I'm sure a lot of that is going to change for the better and give me the sound that I like. I'm not saying I don't like this. I like this. This is ready to go out of the box. I've become such a tubephile that I find enjoyment in even something that I like a lot, playing with tube rolling to see what it does to the sound. Sometimes better, sometimes worse. So we're going to do more follow-up videos on that. Again, my Above and Beyond Trance, this had no problem with it. The bass was there. It was smooth. The song Liquid Love, which is the live acoustic version of a vocal trance song at the Hollywood Bowl. Her voice, when she comes out in the beginning, there's a couple of triggers on that song that help denote systems. The audience was clear. The audience was there. It's not as big as on some amps, but it's not small. It's there like it should be. Her voice. Then it goes to the trumpets in the beginning. The trumpets can sound very brassy and harsh on some amps and some gear. There was none of that. The trumpets were clear. They were there. You knew what they were, and they were never too much in your face. And then her voice, when she comes out and she starts singing, it was the same thing. Her voice is right on that cusp of, is she angelic and beautiful, or is she nasally and harsh? And it's great because your systems can really, in fact, I talk about on the Stealth audio cables, they've got a slider on each one, and you can adjust the cable in terms of where is it rejecting the noise and the interference, and it will adjust the sound characteristic. And I love that song for that, because you know that if you go a little bit too far and she becomes nasally and annoying, you've gone too far in every song. If you keep her just in that sweet zone, you've got it dialed in just right. This amplifier is just in that sweet zone, which is great. She's there, she's clear, but she's not too much. It is a thoroughly enjoyable listen. It's a well-built amp. It looks good. You can tube roll with different easy to find tubes. You know, some of these tubes, like the Triode Finale here, uses, not that they're necessarily hard to find, but like 6-inch H30 tubes and stuff like that. Little bit more unique in terms of finding them and being able to tube roll with that. They use very common tubes. You'll have no problem with these tubes. I would also say that some people may want to try, if you're in the mood for it, try a 6L6 GC. See how it alters the sound. You don't need to. I think this tube this amp out of the box is going to make a lot of people happy. Now, I talk often about amps where if somebody is coming from solid state and they really like that solid state sound, where does this amp fall for somebody coming from a more clinical, dry, clear, I'm going to say painful solid state sound? This amp does not sound like that. There are other amps, something like the KN, for instance, that is going to swing a little bit more towards that solid state sound, that very clear, that very neutral sound, maybe an exaggerated smile a little bit. KN still sounds very good, don't get me wrong. But I think that for a lot of people coming into solid state that want to stick with that solid state, that want a little bit better, a little bit more of the advantages of tubes, there may be other ones that they want to listen to as well. If you're coming into this and you're either an experienced tubephile and you just want a nice amp that sounds good, that's well built, that's a no-brainer, auto bias, and you have the ability to true roll and fine tune that sound with just a smooth, comfortable listen, that's a great amp for you. That is absolutely an amp that, frankly, at $5,500 is a lot of amp for the money. I'm not going to sit here and tell you, oh my God, it punches outside of its weight. I don't know what that means. I hate it when people say that. I'm simply going to say that at $5,500, it is a well-built amp with a very good sound that will please a majority of people for a company that has been around a long time. They know how to put every dollar to work in an amp to get you the best sound possible where you're not overpaying for it. So if you can't tell, I really like this amp. I think it's a great amp. It's definitely worthy for you to listen to if you're in that ballpark for that type of amp and that type of sound. I'm really excited. I'm going to be doing more videos on tube rolling with this amp. I think it's got a lot of potential to go. Now, I want to be careful when I say that because I don't want it to sound like I'm putting the amp down. Every single tube amp I've ever received sounds better when you start tube rolling with NOS tubes. It's just the nature of the beast. Doesn't matter the price, okay? I'm going to give you an example. Even the Airy Syrah at $30,000. If I put in less expensive 845s, current production, and I put in much more expensive, nicer 845s, there's a huge difference in sound. It's just it's the nature of the beast. But this is going to be easy for you to get in, enjoy it. You're with a company that's not that's a startup and you don't know what's going on. And I love supporting USA and European made amps. So check them out. I think you're really going to like it. I liked it. Well done to Qualiton. Remember, it is now Qualiton, not audio hungry. And I think they really hit a nice balance on this amp for sound, performance, ease, and it's tough to go wrong with it. And it's got the power to power. There you go. It's got the power to drive a much wider variety of speakers than my 300Bs, my 283s. We're talking 8 watts. The 283, I think, is 3.5 or 3.6 watts. And if I put in a 45 tube, we're talking 1.6 watts. So that's an amp that's going to allow you, much like the BAT VK80, and I love that BAT VK80, which is at 50 or 55 watts, it's going to open up a variety of options for you to listen to with your speakers. Guys, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Guys, I'm the Greek Audio Geek, and I approve of this message. Opa!